is for being comedic. There's no reason why he should have been eliminated first at WrestleMania, and kind of just built up from there. And I thought they had a good storyline. Honestly, I was definitely interested, very invested into especially that Backlash match. That's that huge jump that Shane did, man. I cringed when he did that. I'm like, good lord. But yeah, I thought it was a good storyline, but I thought it was a good booking. That's me.
Yeah. Now, if they were trying to make Big Show look strong, it was a great booking. But beyond that, I didn't know what was going on. For the pure idea that at least in defeat, Big Show looked strong, and Shane needed a lot of help, I gave it a 5.
6.5.
We kind of completely inversed those last two.
Yeah, we did.
Which is kind of weird because it kind of shows what I like more compared to what you like more.
Yeah, kind of. But you're also biased because that was what you said.
I said more than likely bias.
I said more than likely bias. See, Shane Shane's not what you call a wrestler's wrestler, but you know what, he goes in there, he does the best he can, and he does the big spots. But I think I never had a problem with his abilities. You know?
Shane was more the fearless guy. He would jump off anything you tell him to jump off to.
Pretty much. I've seen him in probably 2 fairly serious matches. I mean, it wasn't 3 probably. It wasn't what you call phenomenal. And I'm not, no pun intended, to AJ, but it was.
Oh, you're gonna call the AJ match not phenomenal, even though the phenomenal one was there?
Yeah. I thought, I thought, it was always. I thought it always been cool to see Shane in matches.
So yeah, I mean, when it comes to Shane, I know what's going to happen. I think probably of his more recent ones, because I don't think the Miz one was that great. I'd probably put Kevin Owens was more on the better side of it. Probably Kevin Owens or AJ, the more recent ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they had the Hell in a Cell match a few years ago, they had Shane versus KO. I already had a huge gut feeling that Shane was going to jump off that cage. There's no doubt in my mind, really, that they're going to set up a spot for him, and obviously they did. So, anything you put height into, he's going to most likely jump off it.
So I kind of had this kind of funny thought, and like Shane talking to Vince. So I want to do this Hell in the Cell match, and I want to jump off the roof. No, you're too old for that. Mom, Dad won't let me jump off the roof of the Hell in a Cell. You do it. He's old enough now. And try to explain to his wife, I'm gonna jump off the roof of the house. What the hell's wrong with you? Oh, my dad said I had to. My dad's an ass. Anyway.
I have to wonder what Vince said with, to Shane, or how it went about him getting in the ring and wrestling. Vince's daddy, Vince Sr., did not want Vince Jr. to be a wrestler, or at least top in the ring, be in the matches. He didn't want to be. So I wonder what the conversation was between Shane and Vince.
I don't know.
I'm just saying. I'm just curious. So
I don't know. I'm just kind of stuck in my one-track mind on that whole visual that kind of created in my head.
Yeah.
So back to this. There was a backstage segment with Gerald Briscoe again. Then there was a backstage between Triple H and Michaels, which I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to set the seeds that maybe Michaels is not going to be unbiased, but they're talking about fucking shorts. Triple H is like, "You're really gonna wear those shorts?" Yeah, I really love those shorts. I know, but and it's like, and Jared's like, "Oh, that was an interesting conversation." No, it wasn't. Why that? Who cares? Anyway.
Just trying to be funny. But yeah, I thought those shorts were kind of too short for him.
Right. Well, I would never wear them that short. But
No,
again,
plus,
he was a wrestler in the '80s, so the short shorts and the fanny pack were in.
oh, they were definitely. Hell, I had fanny pack when I was a kid.
I did too, but it's because my dad had one. It wasn't like, hey, I want a fanny pack. It's like, oh, I'm 8. I want a fanny pack because my dad has one.
Well, that's your weird way.
Oh, I mean, that's a rule. So, give you an idea, I used to have a Sony Walkman with a bunch of tapes, so I used to put my tapes in the fanny pack.
Same here.
And those of you that are way too young to know what tapes are, they're these little plastic pieces of the thing with a little bit of magnetized tape that has music on it. You put it into this Walkman that was a tape player, and you press play. When you got to the end of the tape, you had to rewound it or flip it over to listen to whatever was on the other side.
They're like, and these youngins that are hearing this are probably thinking that's just too much work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, you couldn't rent a videotape from Blockbuster and not get charged for it for not rewinding. Remember, be kind, rewind. Side note, there's a movie called that, Be Kind, Rewind, with Mos Def and Jack Black. Very funny. Any case, Jericho versus Benoit in a match that we don't see much anymore, which is a submission match. I don't understand why we don't see this anymore, to be honest with you. Personally,
if I had an answer, I'd tell you about that one, but I don't. I guess they don't feel like they're worthy enough, or they don't feel like they have somebody in there enough that has a purified submission move that's their own.
Well, they have two in NXT, and they feuded a ton. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are submission guys.
Then they should try to do it, but they're not going to do it. I'm surprised they haven't done that in AEW with Jericho.
I can't think of who you'd do it. Well, if they ever do a Jericho versus MJF thing, it would be a perfect form because they have Walls of Jericho and the Salt of the Earth.
Do it.
I can't think of anyone else that really uses the submission. And the sad part is, well, in WWE, you have the Calf Crusher from AJ. Chad Gable would be now, okay, this is kind of fancy booking. If they want to move Chad Gable up and have him do a submission, Chad Gable versus AJ in an ultimate submission match would definitely be a way to do it. I'm pretty sure AJ would be completely fine with putting Chad Gable over.
Yeah.
But another thing is, like, if you have someone that maybe doesn't use submissions that much, it'd be an interesting way to introduce it. Because I think, if I remember right, a few years ago, they put Sheamus in a submission match, and that's when he started doing the Texas Cloverleaf.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you say that again. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that Sheamus was in a submission match, and that's when he started doing the Cloverleaf.
Yeah.
So
they should be.
Daniel Bryan uses a submission.
Yeah, I think they should.
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting booking. AJ versus Daniel Bryan in a submission match.
That would be interesting. But WWE's not going to do it, though. Unfortunately.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't. But either way. This is... You have Chris versus Chris, which is Canada Chris versus Canada Chris versus Stu Hart Chris versus Stu Hart Chris. So, those are the similarities. Besides the fact that they wrestled in Japan both under a mask at one point, because Benoit was the biggest kid, and Jericho went over there as part of WCW, and God, what's his name? He was the evil version of Jushin Thunder Liger. They both came from WCW. These two guys probably had the most parallels to anybody in the company at the time. They both went to Japan. They both were part of ECW. They're both part of WCW. They both have a submission move for a finisher. They both have a flying move as a finisher, the headbutt versus the lion salt. They both train under Stu Hart. They're both from Canada, as I said. Again, ton of parallels. And it was Chris versus Chris.
The tail of the tape.
Well, it's one of those things where I'm like watching this and I'm like, man, could they not put two people together that were so incredibly similar in background? Because their wrestling styles are completely different. Chris Benoit was more of an aggressor versus Jericho being more of a show off. And one of the things that I don't think is appreciated much today that it should be is I love the fact during this Jericho, whenever he did a move, this is when he was full on, I'm going to yell every time I do a move, Jericho.
Yeah. It's a long history, man. There's a lot of similarities in there.
Yeah, and this is when Jericho was full on, like, chopping, going, the whole time. So there was one spot in particular that I was like, man, Jericho ties up Benoit on the ropes and basically applies a Walls of Jericho. And they kind of highlighted that this match was no DQ because it was a submission match.
Yeah. That was a good spot, too.
It was a great spot, and it was one of those things where you kind of don't see this anymore. You kind of do here and there, but not like that. Not using your own submission into that.
Yeah.
And then the finish, man. Jericho basically gets choked out. He doesn't tap, but the ref calls off the match. So Benoit won, but technically Jericho didn't give up. And I'm really hoping, again, I don't really remember the timeline for this pay-per-view. I'm really hoping that this feud carried on from that.
I believe it did, honestly. Yeah, they had a good storyline that year. So, yeah, it did carry on for a while. I think the nastiest thing I've seen, one of the nastiest things I've seen part of that feud was, I think it was on Raw. They had Benoit do a chair shot to Jericho's face while he's laying down on the floor after getting beat up by Jericho. And it's just nasty chair shot. There's blood coming out of his mouth and everything. It's just nasty. But that was during P2. I think that was after that match, maybe weeks after. But, yeah, that was a good feud, though.
Yeah, and this was, again, a good match. I don't remember them having matches much with each other in WCW, which they would have, because at that time, both of them would be considered the cruiserweight division. But this was for the Intercontinental title. Benoit walks away with the title. Would you rate this as?
I gave it a 6.3.
6.3? For me, I actually did a 7. And I did a 7 because, again, I thought it was a good story told. And I like the fact that Jericho technically didn't tap out, that they furthered the story by showing, one, that Benoit had ruthless aggression, but yet Jericho was not willing to give up at that point.
Yeah, I thought it was a good ending. That was a good way to book it.
So the next thing they do was completely opposite of that. They had a backstage segment with Gerald Briscoe, and he's talking with Michael Cole about everything that's been going on with his title, that everybody's trying to pin him, and he can't go to restaurants. He's looking around, making sure that there's no one with a striped shirt because they're going to try and pin him. His neighbors are trying to pin him. His brothers are trying to pin him. People are coming to his shop trying to pin him. Oh, this whole thing just to try and win the hardcore title. Then he notices someone behind him has a striped shirt and talking to another guy, and he kind of lays them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why was Jericho Briscoe a hardcore champion in his 60s?
That was going on off and on for a little while. At that time, literally everybody was trying to be champion. It was more detailed like that than it is with the 24/7 title. Even the 24/7 title, they had different winners that were a little odd, obviously. Yeah, Briscoe. I don't know what was more weird between doing that. Oh, I think the more weird part was him, Pat Patterson having a what do they want to call it, basically dressing up as women type of match, cross-dresser match.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Well, I remember seeing that.
And then, of course, he has a hardcore title. He's defending it. And yeah, it was entertaining for what it was.
That's good. Yeah, I don't really remember. I don't remember many things about that. Besides, I do remember the cross-dressing thing.
That was always fun. Mr. McMahon says this. Mr. McMahon says it's just. I always laugh when just Mr. McMahon. He kiss his ass.
Yeah, it's I I remember them being the Stooges